My name is Raquel Camassa. I was stage 1 breast cancer, and I am currently cancer-free. My mother had breast cancer, she's also 22 years in remission. So I went last November for my annual, and I got a call back, and I just didn't think anything of it because I've been doing them for so long. I said, okay, great. My mental state was fine. I went back for additional imaging, and they had found 2 tumors, and I just felt the energy in the room shift. And we were chit-chatting, and it was lighthearted and making jokes, and I remember saying to her, oh, last time I had an ultrasound, there was a baby in my stomach. I have three kids. And I said, oh, I hope you don't find a baby there, joking around. And it just shifted, and it got quiet. And I just knew something was off. And the doctor came in, she said, we found 2 tumors. One has an irregular edge, and one does not. And we'd like to take a biopsy of both of them. And I didn't quite understand what that meant. I said, okay. Even then, I'm like, okay, great. What does that mean? She's like, we'd like to get you in as soon as possible, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So I felt kind of a little bit of a panic. I didn't understand why it was so important to get me in so fast. I went in the next morning, did the biopsy, got through it, was terrified. It's better than I expected. I did get some bruising from it. It was no fun. But the hardest part then was waiting for those results. And that was 4 days of waiting. And I talked to my mom a lot in those 4 days. And at first I was just calm and just kept myself busy. And by the 3rd day, I was panicking. I just needed to know. I need to know this way or this way. And my only experience had been my mom with breast cancer, who, this was in in the year 2000, and she had stage 2. She had a full mastectomy with reconstruction and 8 months of chemo. That was my experience. And I had a girlfriend who had found it at 26, had a lumpectomy. It came back 4 times, and she died at 38. So those are my 2 experiences. So I'm panicking. And I got the call on Friday. I remember it was January 27th, 2022 at 5 p.m. And I had been calling the hospital, or calling the offices, asking, like, did you get it yet? Did you get it? Can you ask the doctor? And he called, and he said, it's positive for cancer. And strangely, I was very calm receiving the news. I was panicking the entire week and crying incessantly and worrying and pacing and out of myself with emotions. And then when the news was delivered, I was calm, which was unusual for me. And he gave me all the instructions on where to go. This is the next step. You need to form a team. You're going to have a surgeon, an oncologist, a radiologist, suggested where I should go. I went where my doctors recommended. I wanted to do all my research and have all my options. And I was starting from fresh. I didn't know anything. I took his recommendations and went where he suggested. And it's funny, I remember walking in, and immediately I was like, nope, I don't like this at all. This is not comfortable. There's something inside of me. I was like, oh no, this is not it. I didn't even get to meet the doctors yet. And just the facility, I was like, no, this is not right. So I tried to talk myself into it. I filled out all the paperwork. I met with the doctors, and even with the doctors, it did not feel right. I felt uncomfortable. I had a little bit of a panic breakdown there and crying, and I'm like, this is not how it should feel. And my husband picked up on it immediately. He just knew. And we gave each other a look, and we're like, nope, this is not it. And she gave me a plan, and my instinct, based on my diagnosis and my history with my mom and my friend, was full mastectomy, take them off, take everything out, give me a hysterectomy, whatever it takes, get this out of my body. That was not the recommendation. Obviously, it was an extreme thought, but it was an uneducated, I didn't know what the options would be at that point, but that was my gut. They did recommend a lumpectomy because it was so small and it was early detected. They had said I have the old lady cancer, which is unusual in my age. When I got diagnosed, I was 44. But it was overwhelming and uncomfortable, and it made my skin crawl. I used to work in Santa Monica, so I knew about the hospital. I had never had any experience needing to seek out a hospital except for having my kids. I've only been in a hospital environment to give birth, to give life, to continue that cycle, and to seek out a hospital when there's something wrong was heavy for me. I had a great community of support and friends in Manhattan Beach where I live, and a friend of mine told me that I needed to reach out to Janie Grumley. And I had known her through the elementary school system. Our kids played on the same baseball team. My husband coached her son. So I had no idea that this is what she did. And my girlfriend said, you have to call Dr. Grumley, call Janie. I didn't know she was a doctor. I didn't know she did this because we never discussed what, except the kids practicing and on the baseball field and light stuff. I sent her a fast text saying, here's my situation. I had no idea you did this. Would you be willing to talk to me? And she said, absolutely yes. And within 30 minutes, we're on the phone. I'm telling her my entire prognosis, going over my report. 2 days later, she got me into the office and I was here. And I'm so grateful that I found her. I got to see her 2 days after being in contact with her, and she had told me she scheduled an hour with her, an hour with the oncologist, and an hour with the radiologist. So I met with Dr. Grumley, Dr. Wollman, and Dr. Peddi all at once. We were here for almost 4 hours. My husband and I came together. And she said, by the time you leave here, you will have a plan, you will have a surgery date, you'll have everything you need. And I couldn't believe that. And she was right. And she went through everything in that appointment. And I cried and I was nervous and I asked her all the irrational, dumb questions, and she answered every question with grace and dignity and compassion. And I probably cried like a dozen times just because it's overwhelming and I was tense, and she helped me relax. And with each doctor that I saw, I started with her, which was the most informative. She gave me this binder of so much information, of every option, of definitions of everything. And so this helped clarify, and she went slowly and calmly to a point where I could understand it. And it wasn't overwhelming and it wasn't as scary. And she gave me my options. And with this cancer that I had, I found it early. It was stage 1 because I got my mammograms. And I told her my extreme thoughts and desires of just take them off, take everything, get it out. And she said, we don't have to be that extreme anymore, because that was my experience with my mom and with my girlfriend who had passed. It didn't have to be that way anymore because I have a very small cancer, and because of when I caught it and my age, there are different options. So she had suggested I could do a lumpectomy, and they would immediately test the tissue around it and test my lymph nodes and be able to do intraoperative radiation, which I'd never heard of before. And she went to that page in the book and explained it, and my mind was blown. I didn't know this was a thing. So during surgery, I'm able to have internal radiation. They did reconstruction and sewed me back up, and I was done, which is amazing. I met with Dr. Peddi, and so now I just take tamoxifen. I just get to take a pill for the next 5 years to see how that goes. And Dr. Wollman just did the intraoperative radiation during surgery. They tested a lymph node, nothing had passed. And by the end of my surgery, when I got home, I'm cancer-free. So when I got diagnosed, it was January 27th to March 9th. From diagnosis to being cancer-free after my surgery was 50 days. So I went through all the emotions of understanding that I had cancer, and all the questions in my head is, am I a cancer patient now? This is crazy. This is not what I expected. To being completely cancer-free, walking out of the hospital knowing it's gone. I didn't get sick. I didn't do chemo. I didn't lose my hair. There was a part of me that felt like I got off easy, and there's survivor's guilt because I see so many others that suffer and struggle, and there's an unsurmountable amount of grief and pain. Not to say that I didn't feel that, but it was a short amount of time. I've seen the other side effects that other people have gone through, what my mom had gone through 22 years ago, and that I didn't have to do that because of the technology and because Dr. Grumley said it doesn't have to be that way anymore. We've advanced so much, and I'm so grateful for that, because not that I didn't suffer, but I didn't have to suffer as I had imagined I would. It was the first in-person breast cancer survivors event that I went to. It was a luncheon that was held by the hospital. I was very nervous to go, but it was 45 and under young survivors. I think I was the oldest person there. But it was wonderful. It was probably 40 women of every stage, of just getting diagnosed, of just having surgery, 3 years out, 6 months out, in current treatment. Some women had lost their hair, some women didn't. All ranges. I didn't know that everyone was going to be patients of Dr. Grumley and Dr. Peddi, and I was nervous to go because I didn't feel like I qualified to go because I wasn't sick. I felt fine, and I didn't want to insult any other women that were not doing as well. So I was very timid going, and it was the best thing I could have done. I felt so welcomed. People were just chit-chatting. It was casual. It was light. It wasn't, everyone telling their sad stories. It was telling their enlightening stories. And I shared mine timidly and not sure how it was going to be received. And I connected very closely with two women, and they told me it helped them to know the good and the positive outcomes it can be. And I said, I'm cancer-free, and you can be too, because we're all at the same place, and we've received this incredible treatment. And I left there beaming, and I came home to my husband to tell him about it. He's like, I can see it. And I was very timid to go, and I want to go to all of the events now, because just to connect with somebody else that's gone through it, if it's not your mom, if it's not your partner, your peer, someone else is going through it, helped me so much to know that everything I was feeling was validated, was welcome, was okay. And everybody's story was different, and I was so nervous that my story wasn't good enough, because it's a good story. It's a positive story. This is like exactly what you want if you get diagnosed, to come out on the other side and be. Feeling like I'm a part of this group that I never wanted to be a part of, but now it's something that nobody else can understand unless you're in it. And I'm grateful to be a part of it. And I want to participate as much as I can. And I want to give other people hope to know that it doesn't have to be the death sentence that it used to be, that you can still have a normal life, you can still continue and be okay. And I feel great. I feel really good. I'm not a religious person. My mother is from Puerto Rico, and her name is Providencia, and she came with me to hold my hand, and her name is Pravi. And she looks at the sign, and it says Providence. She said, look at that. And in Puerto Rico, there is a holiday. I asked my husband what St. John did, what his job was, and he was the Baptist, San Juan de Bautista. And in Puerto Rico, it's a big, big, big holiday, and everyone goes to the beach and dunks themselves to baptize themselves, and it happens to be on June 24th, which is my birthday. So there was significance coming here with my mom, whose name is Providencia, and we came to Providence, St. John's, on my birthday. And I go to do this contrast imaging, and I'm nervous. And I go, and the woman that checks me in was an angel. She was so nice. And I start crying, and I ask her additional questions about what the procedure is going to be. And she calms me down and says, I am in the best hands here. There's guardian angels everywhere. She approaches me and my mom and comes up to me and says, you don't know me and I don't know you, but I want you to know you're taken care of here. You're in good hands. You're going to be safe. Dr. Grumley is the best. People come from all over the world to come see her. And I'm starting to tear up, and she gives me a hug, and she hugs my mom, and she hands a box into my hands and says, open this when you leave. And I had no idea what it was. And I look at my mom and I'm like, okay. And so we start walking out and I open it and it was a guardian angel for my car with a little prayer on it. And I look back and I look at her and we're both expressing gratitude. And she didn't have to do that. And I didn't know her. I don't remember her name, unfortunately, but it was such an act of kindness that made such a difference. And I brought that guardian angel with me when I came to have my surgery. And when I came for my checkups after my surgery, I came and thanked her and she remembered me and she said she'd been thinking about me. And every time I come back to the hospital now, I go in and check with her and say, I'm fine, look, I'm great, I'm okay. And she says, I told you so. I knew it. She was right. I think the best advice I can give is early detection. I've been doing mammograms every year. Do not skip them. Don't put it off. Don't wait till next year. My cancer developed over a year. From my previous mammogram to the next one, it developed. And I think I shared my story with everyone I knew. That helped me process. I talked about it. I felt it. I was open with it, and that helped me process it more. I wasn't afraid of it, and I think because of early detection is why I found it. And I really feel like it doesn't have to be this bad sentence anymore because of mammograms, because of technology. I went from diagnosis to cancer-free in 50 days because I got my mammogram. And now Breast Cancer Awareness Month is coming up in October, and I feel like I'm going to shout it from the rooftops, get your mammograms. It can save your life. It totally saved mine, and I'm fine. I'm completely fine, and I feel stronger than I was before. She saved my life. She's a hero, and every time I see her, I hug her and I thank her and I cry, and I can't believe that she made such a horrible thing become so easy. It felt easy if I had to go through it. There are days I forget that I had cancer because of Dr. Grumley, because of her team and what she did, and she made it forgettable in the most positive way ever, because it was such a good experience that it didn't have to be hard, and it didn't have to be bad. It turned out to be so good. And that she formed these luncheons for other survivors to come together and meet each other. And because I was so nervous to go, and I'm so glad that I did, because I met some other survivors that now are friends, like Michaela, and to be able to share our stories together and to know that we're supported and we're not alone and it's okay. And her story is different from my story, and my story is going to be different from the next person's story. And it doesn't take away from anybody's experience. And it helps to know everybody's story, to know that yours is validated and it matters and it's significant because of Dr. Grumley.